Hey everyone, this is Chris Mulcahy. I'm back here with the Jeti Duplex DS-16 transmitter. I wanted to talk a little bit about the built-in sequencer that comes with this radio, and it's a powerful feature of the radio that allows you to do things like sequence gear doors on retracts. But I got to thinking about possible other uses for the sequencer, and I wanted to show you what I'd come up with. This glider has a light system on it. It has two separate lighting setups on it. And what I've basically done is I've just gone ahead and assigned the lights to the sliders on the side so that I can control the intensity of the LEDs, as you can see. And that's cool, but I thought I could do something better with the sequencer, so I went in there, played around with it, and basically, just as an example, this is what I came up with using the sequencer. So all I do is I flip this switch, and there you go, the lights go off through this sequence. And I'll just turn that off again. And I can also set the lights so that they're just barely on, just enough to see it at night. And then when I go through the sequence again, the lights will always, the dimmest they will get is what you see right there when I flip the switch. So it'll still go through the sequence, it will still strobe, but the lights will never go out. But it does actually look better when the lights do go out. So that's the end result. Actually, I'll just dim the lights here so you can kind of see it in action. Okay, so I'm going to zoom the camera into the transmitter here, and I'll walk you through how I actually set this up. Okay, so to set this up, we need to go into the model menu and then down to functions assignment. And here I just want to check that my two light channels that I've named Light Fuse and Light Wing have these sliders assigned to them, which they do. P5 and P6 are these sliders on the side. With those set, and it's also channel 4 and 5 just for reference. So if I go back out of here and go to Advanced Properties and then select the sequencer. And this is the sequencer. There's nothing set up right now, so we'll go in on the first of the sequence channels here, which is Q1, and I'm just going to go right into Advanced, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to click on the label, and I'm going to call this, we'll just call it Light 1. Okay, so that one's called Light 1. And we have a few options that we can play around with here. This is where we set which channel that this part of the sequencer affects. So Q1, the Q1 sequence is going to overwrite the light fuse channel, which is channel 4. So set that, and then I'm going to set it to cycling so that basically when it gets to the end of the sequence it plays it backwards, and it'll just keep bouncing backwards and forwards. And then always finish sequence. If I turn this on, if I activate this function, when I turn the sequence on, it'll play through the sequence, and when I turn the switch off, it'll complete the sequence before it disables. If I leave it unchecked, when I throw the switch off again, it will just stop what it's doing right there and then. So I'm going to leave that off for this application. I'm going to go down to Q2, which is the second sequence that we can program, and go into Advanced, and I'm going to label this Light 2. Okay, and I'm going to make sure it's set to Light Wing, which is channel 5. That's the channel that this part of the sequence is going to affect. And the same thing, I'm going to set it to cycling, but I'm going to leave always finish sequence unchecked, so that it will just stop what it's doing when I turn the switch off. So that's it. Okay. Now, if I go back up to Light 1 sequence, I'm going to assign the switch to SD right here. So I hit switch, asks me to select the switch. There we go. and I'm going to go over the time, and I'm going to move the time to 0.1, and I'm going to turn the lights on. So I'm going to set that all the way up to 125, and then hit add point. Okay, now I'm just going to keep increasing across the timeline and just randomly set points and values just to get our sequence. Reduce that back down to 0. Okay, and we'll keep going. Add the point, increase the value, and go back to time. I'll make this a really drawn out fade of the lights at a point there, so that's about 1.5 seconds fade. Pull that back down to 0. Oops, too far. And then we'll do a quick, we'll go 0.1 second over, add another point, make the lights come on real quick. And we'll just do a couple of flashes here, just basically on off. And I'm kind of doing on and off values over a period of time, but of course you don't have to set it on and off. You could do partially on for an extended period of time, and basically whatever you can think of you can pretty much do. I forgot to add the point there. There we go. Turn that on, and we'll do one more quick little fade we'll make it a 3-second sequence. Add the point, reduce that to 0. So that's the sequence, and you know, we could test it by flipping the switch here, and you can see the line going backwards and forwards as it's running through the sequence. So that's the first one. So now I'll go down to Q2, which I've named Light 2, and we'll do something similar. So I'll just set the switch first. So you can see that you can set different switches for different parts of the sequence, but for this purpose I'm using the same switch for all the sequences. So I'll assign SD, okay, and let's go. We'll set that in the off position, and I'll increase it to here. I'm just going to basically mirror what I did with the above sequence. That way the lights will be flashing alternately. Go. So whereas the first set of lights will be doing a big fade out there, the second set will be doing a fade in. At the point, reduce that down. Almost there. And as you can see, I just did a mirror image. Okay, and then again you can watch the line go backwards and forwards. And that's it, that's the basic sequence set up. Now that we have our sequence set up, we can go ahead and test it. So I'm going to flip the switch here, and we can see the lights go off through their sequence. Now if I adjust the sliders, we're not getting any activity on the lights. And that's because whichever channel you assign in the sequencer takes priority over everything else. To get around that, you need to exit out of this, go back to Model, and Function Assignments. What we need to do is scroll down to our light channels and select the first one, scroll over to the Trim menu, and assign the same slider to the trim function. And then do the same for the second light channel, which are the sliders, which is what we want to use to control the intensity of the lights. Doing that, the trim function overrides the sequencer. And now we can go back and we can use the sliders to affect the intensity of the lights. The sequencer still works, but we can still adjust the intensity manually. And we can set it very dim setting. So even with the lights dim, the sequence will still strobe the lights, but the lights will never get dimmer than what the sliders are set to. And that's it. And anyway, there's a non-traditional use of the sequencer, and I hope some of you find this useful.